Alrighty, and welcome back to Let's Get At It. Today is February 18th. It is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard, but I believe it's closer towards the middle of the afternoon for our guest today, as we are here today with Ewelina Curtys, who is one of the founders of Ekai.io. She is a doctor, has a doctorate in front of her name, which is very cool, our first doctor on the podcast. And today we're going to break down something a little bit more innovative than what we usually do, as Ewelina and her company talk about biocomputing, where they conserve tons of energy and are going to pretty much be flipping the world on its head as it comes to helping businesses use their technology for a better use. Ewelina, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Awesome. Now, I know you have a very big vision here, but I want to hear how your gears turn a little bit. When it comes down to maybe raising some money, and I'm going to give you $50K, right? And I ask you to turn that into $1 million in 2 months. I know it's a tall task. I know maybe if you had the answer to that, you would have done it by now. But what would you do?
I think with the deep technology, you have to unfortunately operate for on longer timelines and with much bigger money. So project like FinalSpark, which we talk about today, is a long-term project. We expect to finish our product in 10 years. And we are fundraising 50 million Swiss francs, which is around $50 million for that. So unfortunately, I don't personally believe in short solutions. Even if you invest in stocks or anything, it always takes time. So I would be very cautious. If someone would promise me some returns in 2 months, I would be very, very careful. I think it's usually scam. So I don't believe so much unless someone has really maybe some niche special, but I think most of the time it doesn't work. And especially in the deep tech, the projects are taking a long time and they consume a lot of money. But the returns are huge, can be huge.
Totally understand.
High risk. Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm a co-founder of a mobile app that's a tech company in that sense.
Yes.
We've been going on for a little bit longer than 2 months and raised a little bit more than $50K. But the return doesn't happen in 60 days. So I completely hear you there. It could come across as a scam. And I like the fact that you operate from a very low time preference. You're not in here for a quick buck. You have a 10-year timeline. You have commas and digits aligned with the money that you want to be raising here. And so it's fascinating, especially in the day and age where AI is growing so quickly. People are trying to turn around businesses in not just years, but in days. But you keep this old school, conventional, potentially more traditional sense of business where you're able to jump into it and plan for the long term. And so let's shift gears here. Let's talk about that. With Ekai.io, how have you been able to put your time and energy into this over the past couple of years? And you talk about 10 years. What does that timeline look like for you?
So mainly in deep tech projects, actually the success mainly depends on the technical side, because when you want to build a disruptive product, it has to work. So you are building new type of technology. So for example, in the short-term project, you can use technologies which already exist, like for example, a mobile app, which is very good project. If you have a good idea for this, I think it can bring returns much faster, and you use existing technologies which are proven to work. But in deep tech, you are trying to build new technology which nobody proved yet that it works. So it's higher risk, and also it takes a longer time. But I would say the success strongly depends on the technical side. Not so much maybe on, I don't know, UX or stuff like that, or how to make it pretty. Because if it works, then the numbers will defend the project. So for example, we aim to build a computer which will use 1 million times less energy as compared to the silicon. So if we achieve this technical milestone, then this number will be kind of like enough. Of course, if you can have a processor which is much cheaper and it will work with the same performance as digital, then of course you would choose it. So I think in the deep tech, the dynamics are different, priorities are different. It's just, it's much more on the technical. side, because the only thing when the project works if the product will work. So you cannot make it pretty or something. Like I think with the short-term projects, I think sometimes if you have a good marketing, good communication with the prospective clients, you can win a lot. So I think these are this difference
This
between
is a very
DI and
interesting
the rest of
thing.
the world. Mhm.
Yeah, this is very interesting that you bring that up because we're starting to break down that the short term really relies upon the marketing and the UI
Yes,
to the way that
I
it
believe
looks.
so.
Yeah, and the way that it feels. But you're all about the functionality, which is fascinating. And you just used the
Yes, I
word,
really believe so. Yes,
you
that
just
is like that. Mhm.
you just used a million times. You said 1 million times you think that you are going to be able to use 1 million times less energy than a silicon
Yes.
computer. Now, explain it to me as if I don't know anything about computers, but I don't even realize that computers are using that much energy. And to say that if they are using that much energy, 1 million times less is amazing that you guys are shooting for that. How are you attacking that?
So actually, today we don't feel it yet so much, but artificial intelligence is using increasing amount of energy. This amount is increasing very fast and it's making AI more expensive. And today we don't feel it yet because many models, like for example, large language models, are cheap because we are in the adoption phase. So for example, OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT, to the best of my knowledge, they lost almost $30 billion already. And it's normal stage in the technology development that you have adoption phase. You keep prices very low because you want people to get used to the technology, learn how to use it, and appreciate the value. But the real price of AI is much higher. So we can expect that in the future, this price is going to increase. And also additional factors are the fact that the smarter the model is also usually using the more energy because it's bigger. And also if we want to use AI in more areas of our life, it will also increase the cost because we will need more compute. So this is a growing problem, the price of AI. And this maybe is not painful today, but we can expect if nothing will change, if we still have digital processors the same as we have today, that in the future AI will be very, very expensive. And what does it mean? It will not be accessible for everyone. So if we lower the price of AI by providing different type of hardware, then we can also make sure that everyone or more people can use it to the benefits.
Fascinating. And I don't really know if I even want to get into the weeds of how you're attacking this, just because it seems like you had to be extremely polished to even take on some challenge like this. But if you can, I would love to be able to hear about just maybe a comparison, an analogy, in where we're at right now and for what you're building with Ekai.
With FinalSpark, actually, FinalSpark is building the computer. So
Final
I would
Spark.
say yes. Um, Finals, well, I would say we are in early development, prototyping. We managed to store one bit of information, which illustrates somehow how early we are in the process. So for the moment, our laboratory is more a research platform. But what is special about our project is that our lab, which is in Switzerland, is available remotely to anyone in the world through the API. So you can access this through the internet browser. And we have already clients who pay us to access the lab. Of course, for research purpose, not to use the computation power, but to research how neurons process information. But I think this is already great success that we have already some kind of commercial success, which is kind of side effect of the project. So we are very proud of this, but the technology is still on the R&D phase. So when we talk about final product, the biocomputer, this will take around 10 years, and it's a really early stage now. We can store one bit. Mhm.
Wow. I guess step by step and day by day. Which
Yes.
which brings me to like the thesis of this whole podcast. Now, the app that I have with my co-founder Alec, it's called Add It, where we pay users to watch videos. We get market research for all these direct to consumer brands. It's deeper advertising and it's market research in a modern form. But We believe in not just what we're building, but what we do on the day to day. Hence, let's get at it. And I want to hear, Evelina, what do you do to get at it? How do you attack the day?
How I attack the day?
Yeah.
Well, I think my secret is that I always choose to do what I like, and this gives me energy because I always follow my passion. I know it's some people disagree with this. They say it's impractical, but I'm not very practical in this sense. I always follow the interest and passion, and that gives me energy because my work is much easier if I work on things which fascinates me somehow.
That's a fascinating way to put it because that's honestly one of the best things that I took away from episode 10 with Alec, where we talk about how in order to actually garner long-term success, which is what you're building here with Final Spark, you have to have the passion and the autonomy to make that decision upon yourself. I'm here because I want to do this. And because I want to do this, I want to be great at it. And in order for me to be great at it, I have to show up every single day. So there's no
Yes.
surprise that if you're able to be passionate about something today, tomorrow, and next week and next month, I have faith, and I'm sure you do too, that you'll have the passion to do it in 10 years.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing.
It's much easier, much easier.
So, when it comes to what you're building with biocomputing and something that's so innovative, we can get into the weeds of it a little bit more, but I'm genuinely curious kind of a little bit more about who Evelina is more so than what Final Spark is building because how do you get to this point? I'm curious just how you see this world, but not just from a physical standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. And so my question to you is what governs your soul?
Oh, passion, I think, and curiosity, I would say. I always wanted to take part in interesting conversation. So that's my maybe my main driver. I wanted to have access to something interesting and take part in interesting discussion when I was a child. That was my dream. So this is why also later I became a scientist because I thought, okay, at least for me that was interesting. And I think this opens you the door to take part in many discussions, which are interesting if you know some science. And later, when I left academia, I started to explore. I discovered the world of startups. I discovered this was so great. When I was a scientist, I had no idea that, you know, I heard about startups, but I really didn't know what does it mean too much. And later, I discovered that it gives you um, incredible freedom and flexibility. So I become fascinated also with this concept of startups. I think it's really amazing work. Not for everyone, of course. Some people feel better in big organizations, so I think it's also fine. But for me, startups world is perfect.
It's a funny dichotomy, Evelina, because the joining and building of a startup, it
Hmm.
gives you this sense of freedom. However, it also puts on this extra burden, but a burden in a good way of it's all on your shoulders. And the train can only move forward if you're the one pushing it forward. To where, yes, you do have the freedom, but you also need to have the drive. And so I'm curious, do you have that inner fire that wakes you up every single day in order to push that forward, whether it be with Ikai or with Final Spark?
Yes, I think I do. I have inner drive to move forward, no matter how many obstacles I have on the way. I think it's just nature. I don't know. I think we are born with this kind of stuff. I think it's a lot of genetics here. And when you are a scientist, actually, life is similar. You have a lot of failures and a lot of things don't work, but at the end, you have nice things when you finish your research, for example, your PhD or something. So you know that it will bring you good things, this effort and maybe disappointment on the daily basis, but you know that in the bigger picture is good to do this. And I think in the entrepreneurship is the same. Um, that you have to maybe some kind of enjoy this constant effort with the many failures. However, I have to say that I think it's not always difficult to work with startups because you know, FinalSpark has two founders, Fred Jordan and Martin Kuter, and they put the money, they personal money in the project, and I think they take the biggest risk. So for us, for the rest of the team, We work with them, we join, of course, it's cool, but we don't really have such a high burden because we don't risk personal money on the project. I think it's actually in the startups, I would say the founders. So whether you fail or not, the project, you still get better because you will learn a lot. And you become, in my opinion, a better person through this project. So I think for a person like me, this is zero risk, at least on a FinalSpark project. But I think the risk and this burden you mentioned is more for the founders. And I did, for example, another project in the past, which was also mobile application like yours, which where I put my own money, and that was my my project and my idea. So I think in this case, I understand, I know how it feels. Then you really take a risk, and you really, okay, you might feel a little bit more pressure. But I think if you don't put your money and work with startup, then actually this is, I think, perfect situation because you don't risk anything and you can only win. Because when you work on innovative project, you can only win with that. I don't see any bad side of this. I just cannot see because it can only give you better, even if no matter what happened. Although of course we believe the project is going to work, but still, I would say for me, it's I don't see this as a risk.
Yeah, that's an
Yeah.
amazing way of looking at it because
Mhm.
unless you're putting the money forward, that's literal
Yes.
tangible risk that you had and you can lose. But when the money
Yes.
is not at risk or when you can get past that, you're saying that it's only a net positive. Whether you win or whether
Yes.
you lose, quote unquote, you're able to at
Yes.
least have work that's enriching enough to be able to learn what a mindset to take
Yes,
to
and
your
you also
everyday.
learn in general. So you learn when working on the disruptive project. You learn a lot. Yes, and in a small team also you learn a lot because we are only 6 people. So that gives opportunity to everyone to do a lot of variety of jobs.
Wow, that's great. All right. I have a final question for you. And it's something that I've seen and I've read on before. Albert Einstein, Galileo, all of these top thinkers that have spanned over the course of the past couple thousand years. They say that the closer that they get to science, like the more that they really understand the way in which they're trying to master, they say that the more that they learn, the closer and more they realize that God exists. Now, as you attack this with building something that's so elaborate and advanced, and you learn more and more, you've taken so much school. Would you say that is there a correlation between the more you learn about science and the more that you believe in God?
I think not really, but maybe actually not really because a lot of people actually who do science they don't believe in religion. So I personally don't think so. Um, I don't know. It's a difficult question, to be honest. I think maybe you start to believe that nature is beautiful when you understand it better. That's for sure. But whether it's God or something else, that's an open question. And I think also the time in which we live now is different than these people you mentioned. I think today the religion is much different position than in the past. So I think today people maybe don't always see God, but they see the beauty of the nature or whatever. Maybe they just call it in a different way. Um, but yes, maybe in some way, when you study nature, like you said, physics or biology, anything like this is nature. Maybe you might also admire the world better, and then you call it God or maybe something else. And maybe it's just the words. I don't know.
Gotcha. Well, that's really cool. Evelina, it was phenomenal to be able to learn about what you've built and how you
Thank you
think,
so much.
especially someone who's doing something so long term with such large stakes at hand. I've never been able to talk to somebody, especially on the pod, with something that has such a low time preference to build something that's like the Sistine Chapel of technology, where it was really a pleasure to speak with you today. And I wish you the best of luck at FinalSpark and Ekai.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you, Evelina.
Thank you too.